Hey everyone, it's Troy. The following episode is an intense one. It contains discussion of sexual violence, disordered eating, and a near-death experience. For these reasons, listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a weekly podcast where we interview the people and businesses of New Hampshire and Maine. I'm Troy Farkas. I've produced some of the most popular podcasts in the world, and since moving to the Seacoast in 2023, I've fallen in love with the area and its inspiring people. And now I am on a mission to bring the Seacoast closer together, one podcast at a time. Today, we continue our month-long theme of celebrating the women of our area by talking to one of the leading female voices on the Seacoast and beyond. If you are at all tapped into the business scene around these parts, then you know who she is. She is the one and the only Amber Lilyestrom. My biggest complaint with the internet is that it fractures the connection between humans. Online dating, not ideal because it's so transactional. You don't get to display your true essence or personality online, just what you look like, and that is such a small portion of the real story. Texting and DMing, it's a great way to stay in touch, but these conversations between blue and gray bubbles lack the intimacy we all crave. But when Amber and I started messaging last fall, I felt something different with her, even through the artificial glow of the screen. On the other side of it, she felt mystical, not like a real human being, because she was someone who clearly knows herself and feels more deeply in ways that only I could dream of. I had to know more about this woman. And in the ensuing months, we stayed in touch, and I found out a lot more about the woman who has changed the lives of hundreds of women on the Seacoast and tens of thousands more around the world. She's a big deal, and I feel so honored to know her. Amber Lilyestrom grew up in Reading, Massachusetts, moving to New Hampshire when she was 9 years old. She attended the University of New Hampshire, where she played Division I soccer, eventually working her way up to captain in her senior year. After playing at UNH, she spent 14 years working her way up the ranks of the UNH athletic department, eventually earning the title of Associate Athletic Director of Marketing and Strategic Initiatives. Then, because of one life-changing day, Amber walked away from that life, knowing deep down, as she often does, that something bigger and better awaited her. That something was business coaching, a job she created well before it was cool to be a business coach. She developed personal brands for her clients, also before personal brands became a thing. She did photography and web design, and after a couple years of stepping into her own, things really began to take off, including Amber's own personal brand, especially here on the Seacoast. In April 2016, she published the first episode of the Soul-Powered CEO podcast, a show that is now known as Homeward, the Sovereign Business Podcast, which she records in her mobile studio, i.e., while going for walks in the forest. In 2017, Amber hosted her first Ignite Your Soul event at 3S Art Space, where she got 97 women together for a day of deep work and hearing from speakers like our mutual friend, Jennifer Wilder. Then, Amber launched a masterminds group. She started to lead retreats. She hosted another Ignite Your Soul event at 3S, this time with 200 people in attendance in 2018. And the next year, she hosted the 2-day Ignite Your Soul Summit at the Music Hall, where 500 people joined in on the festivities. She's also the author of 4 books, Master Your Money Mind, Quantum Wealth, Paddle Home, and most recently, a poetry book entitled Little Big Beautiful Things. She also posts frequently on Instagram, where she educates and inspires her nearly 90,000 followers. Today, Amber lives in the woods in Lee, New Hampshire, with her second husband, Ben, and her 2 children, Ani, a 12-year-old girl, and Alex, a 3-year-old boy. They live on the lake, and Amber spends the majority of her days in another dwelling on their property, a beautiful blue structure Amber has lovingly named the Treehouse. That's where I met Amber for the first time in January, and it's where we recorded this episode last month. Her house is literally her dream home, and in a lifetime full of accomplishments, her family is by far the one she's proudest of. So Amber doesn't leave the property too often because why would she? The majority of her coaching clients are online. She holds retreats on her property. She hasn't hosted an event on the Seacoast for years now, and it's unclear if or when she ever will again. Today's podcast is presented by our dear friends at LANEY and Lou, and in part one of a two-part episode that we will air next week, Amber and I discuss her life leading up to the seven-figure coaching business that the 44-year-old has built. In part one, we'll talk about the unforgivable things she experienced as a child in Massachusetts and how it's shaped so much of who she is today. We talk about her athletic prowess, climbing the ranks as an employee at UNH, Amber's one-of-a-kind intuition, her decades-long battle against disordered eating, and how she nearly left this world on the day that she gave birth to her daughter. Here's Amber Lilyestrom.
So I'm from Reading, Mass, and we lived there until I was about 9 or so. And early on, so my mom was an entrepreneur as well, which I think is a really amazing part of the story. Is my mom was a photographer. She was published in Powder magazine. And I remember her telling me the story of like, I was up on the mountain, like up on the hill, like in between all of these men with my camera out. And she's like, I'm like embarrassed my mom telling the story. She's like, and then I had to pee and I had to like go back down the mountain, you know? And she's like, it was hard. It was a hard gig, like being a woman in that time, you know, this is like the 70s, and having ambition and, you know, having skill and having a talent. And so she built this photography business, but then also built an agency for commercial photography. So she would send out photographers to companies to do their photography for them. Like she built this whole thing herself, and that's in my blood, you know, like that's in my lineage. And obviously my dad worked and had his own career. He worked in sports. He was a national sales manager for Fisher Skis and Yarvin Skis. And my dad's a big ski guy. And I was under the care of extended family members, like my babysitters. Essentially, my mom was at work. And while I was there, I was sexually molested. I was assaulted, and I was really young. So I was, 3.5, 4 years old, and I had this experience, and it really like changed everything because, trauma does that, right? It just like completely changes the course of history in terms of like what things are. And so once my mom realized like what had happened or what was going on, just immediately sold her company, sold her business, like dropped it all and backed me, and got me to be able to go to court, ultimately to testify. I was 5 in court against my abuser. And basically my mom will say, you've asked her the story, which is hard for her, it still is. She was like, I wanted you to have justice. I wanted you to use your voice. I wanted you to tell your truth. And I wanted you to be able to get that out. And I'm just, crying because I'm just so grateful for that, and there's so many people that don't have that, that didn't get to have that. And while that part was really hard, it was really hard. I remember it vividly. I remember standing in the courtroom. I remember being a 4-year-old, 4. My son's 3.5. So it's like extra tender to think about like his little size self having to like grapple with all this and talk to adults. And it's just all of that so scary for small kids. But for whatever reason, I had the mental faculties and wherewithal to be able to communicate, and I'm so grateful for that too, that was the case. Not something that I feel like, oh, I had some superpower. It just was, it just was. My mom's like, you talk so early. You were just a kid that was able to just communicate at a really, really young age. And she's like, and I think that's a huge blessing because when this happened, you were able, to communicate.
Yeah. And that's what I'm curious about. And obviously I'm so sorry that happened to you so young. You were so young. Did you even have the ability to comprehend that this was wrong, that this just wasn't a part of everyday life?
Yeah. I think the way that I communicated it was like through drawing. And then my mom would ask me questions and I would start saying things. And she was just like, whoa, 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 something's not right. And what any parent listening to this will know is that you are with your child for their whole entire life. So every new word they say, you're tracking every new thing, every new food, you're with them for all of that. So to have your child come home and start drawing weird pictures or saying weird things, that's not normal. And my brother was a baby. So it wasn't like there was no other input. It wasn't like there was an older sibling or, so clearly there had to be a source, and it wasn't my home. Right. So my mom was like immediately on it and like, okay, what is going on? And immediately like change the environment, change the situation, and got advocacy and all the things that needed to happen. Especially because there was also, my cousin involved in that family. So my mom was like on it to protect the children. My mom actually got legislation passed in Massachusetts at the time after all of this. Like she worked with other parents and stood on the state house steps in Massachusetts and told the story and became an advocate.
Wow. What was the legislation?
I don't remember the top of it, but it was like, it was more protections for kids and really like giving us the opportunity to tell our story. Because I think one of the biggest things that was so difficult, and I remember these experiences vividly, was hearing adults say, A, she's making it up. B, how could she remember that? Like questioning my truth, saying she's not going to remember because I was scared because I was in this courthouse with all these adults staring at me and they wanted me to tell the story. And I was like, I'm a baby. Like I was scared, and I remember the day that I did finally testify, I think there were like maybe 1 or 2 times I had gone before and I got spooked out and I just couldn't do it. And I felt so ashamed. I felt bad because I was wasting people's time and I could see my mom was like, okay, she was supporting me. It's like, oh, I feel so bad for like that version of myself, like, geez, that's so intense. And I have such a heart for like all of us who have gone through these types of experiences, it's like, you can't go through something and then also then have that level of empathy that like gets installed in your hard drive, So it's going into my mind as I'm telling the story. And I remember being in the hallway and I went in there. My parents weren't allowed to come in. I think back to that now and I'm like, that's so insane as a parent, like over my dead body that my child would go into a room without me. But like, that's how it was. Like that was the law. And I went in and I told my story. I remember just saying to myself, my little tiny self, have courage, Amber, have courage, Amber, have courage, Amber. And I did.
You were 5 years old and you went before a room of people.
I know.
To say what had happened to you.
Yeah, it was the last time I told the story. I've never told the story again.
Wow. I honestly can't believe that they let you do that. Because again,
it was the 80s.
Are so young.
It was the 80s. It was a different time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you did go up there in front of all of those people without your parents in the room.
Yeah.
What do you remember feeling then?
I mean, I remember I was standing at like a table, like this, like, like those faux wooden tables that they used to have in like school classrooms. So like one of those little sort of, I don't even know what the shape was, but little table. I remember I had my hands on it and everybody was sitting in the room and they were sitting at like desk type seats. And it seemed like there were like 60 adults in the room, to my little tiny self. I don't know how many people there actually were, but I know it was like a grand jury. So it was a room full of adults all staring at me. And I remember the feeling of like, they don't believe me. Like they're staring at me. I remember the feeling of that, of like, I just kind of was focused, like, just say the story, just say the story, stay focused on it. I was like coaching myself as a 5-year-old, it's so nuts. I mean, I really understand how wild this story sounds, but it's my life, it's all I know. And I knew that once I did it, I didn't have to do it again. And then I was going to be free. And there was an opportunity where I could have gone to court again and like pushed it further and he would have gone to jail. And I didn't want that. I just wanted my family to be safe. I just wanted to do the thing so that he could not bother us. That was what I wanted. And I was like, I don't want to see him again and I don't want to do that. And I made that decision. And I also the other thing is I didn't want my cousin to lose his dad. I was like, I don't need to do that. I just want to like have the thing I know that I need to have. And I was in therapy too. So it's like, I can't perceive, like the support I was getting, like what I was being necessarily like supported with. But all I know is my mom was like there. She was like the foundation. She held with me in it. She believed me and was like, we're just going to do this one thing. And it was essential. It was essential.
the fact that you had the self-awareness and presence of mind this young to be able to be cognizant of all of these things, to care for your family members and losing their dad is very impressive. I
don't think of it as anything other than just like it was my life, Yeah. It just was.
And ultimately, what was the result of the court case?
Yeah, it was the restraining order was for me and my whole family. He couldn't come near us. And and it was set essentially in that way. But of course, it had all kinds of ramifications with family of origin and all the things that come with that when people are in denial and not taking ownership for their dysfunction. And, it's a big part of the reason why we moved to New Hampshire. It was really like a refuge. It was like my mom, she told me this story later down the line. She said, I just want, it's like, oh, my mom's so smart, so wise. She said, I just wanted you to be able to be free. And I didn't want to worry. I wanted you to be running around barefoot in the forest, catching frogs and building forts with your brother. And that's what we did. And we moved to this conservation land, and my parents still live in my childhood home, this beautiful home in Hampstead. And that's why I'm a forest fairy. That's why I wanted to live on the lake. It's just my nature was my refuge.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. And I would imagine that as you were growing up, once you get into New Hampshire, that's this, you can't just sweep it under the rug. It's going to come up in situations. And so I'm just wondering, as you were growing up, how was this situation still sticking with you or affecting you, your interactions, your mindset, et cetera?
Yeah. I was in therapy until I was about 7, 8, I think. My mom, I would take me, it was like group and therapy and all these things. And I remember, at a certain point, I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a kid. I don't want to have these conversations anymore. I honestly remember going into like the group therapy room where the other kids were and they were playing. And I remember just seeing just perceiving, realizing that these kids have been through some really, really hard things. And I felt a lot of empathy for that. I felt like these kids were really struggling. And I just was like, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I think one of the hardest parts, and now as a parent, I realized, my mom, she wanted to give me everything she could, to make sure I was okay. And I am and I was, and I feel like in my childhood, I was always like trying to convince her of that, I'm okay, mom. I'm okay. I am. And I was. It was in terms of that specific acute situation of the abuse itself. The harder part was the familial dysfunction and the breaking there, and really starting to register over the years that, this is a result of they didn't believe me. And so then they chose that side of the family, and those parts were harder. And then I also think that I never told that story. I didn't tell anybody. So then basically I put it away, moved to New Hampshire, start my whole life here. I don't think I even said out loud to someone that I had that experience in my life until I was dating a boy in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was sort of just we don't talk about it. And I think that actually is the more, now that I'm, 44 and I can look back on that, I go, that probably was the more damaging part of it, is just that there's so much shame that comes with these things. And I was given the gift of being able to use my voice to get justice for it and be witnessed for it and be validated for it, even though there were people that were close to me that didn't validate it. But the most important people did, my parents did, and they had my back, and family, friends, and, some of my mom's siblings and whatnot, but not all of them. But I think that there's this an implicit piece of my mom also went through a lot of trauma in the way that, this happened to her child, and she crushed herself. And I knew that it hurt her, and I wanted to take that away, and she gave up her dream for me, her original dream.
So one of your outlets in your early years became soccer. You picked up soccer at the age of 9.
I did.
And you were pretty darn good from what I understand.
I mean, at first I was not. It's one of those skills, right? Where the only way you get good at it is by doing it. And I was a gymnast, actually. I started gymnastics when I was 18 months old.
Wow.
sports were super important to my parents. And so it was instilled in us. I was 18 months old. I had like my diaper sticking out of my leotard, at the gym. There's like pictures of me like walking around doing scales on the beam. And I was into it. I really liked it. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I was on the team and all of this. And then I started soccer. We moved to New Hampshire. My dad, I think it was like my parents' way of like helping make friends and stuff, get in the community. So my dad was helping coach the travel team, and it was all boys. And he was like, Amber, come play. So I started playing with the boys, and I was not good. I'd never played before, but I just kind of stuck with it, and I liked it. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. So I played from 9 until 13, all with boys. There were no girls teams available. Like we didn't even have a girls middle school team until I was in the 8th grade. So just, back in the day, Troy.
Right.
And then I played my freshman year at Pinkerton, and I made varsity. And then my parents basically dragged me by my ponytail to the Olympic development tryouts. And they were like, we're going to the next, you're going to do this. I was like high score and I had done really well. And they're like, this is what you're doing. And I'm grateful that they pushed me because I didn't want to. And I made the ODP pool by the skin of my teeth. And I got the bug for it. And I realized, early on, going back into the story a little bit, I had made this mental math of, if I want to go to college, I'm going to have to get a scholarship for something, right? Because money was tight. Money was stressful. I had this story of like, I don't want to be a burden to my parents at all in any way, shape, or form. I hate seeing them struggle. So I just made this mental math of like, well, dad had a scholarship and he went to college. I'm going to do that too. And so I was like 10 years old, 11 years old. I'm like, okay, I think I'm like going to maybe be decent at this.
Wow. Again, just the forward thinking, the self-awareness.
It's really amazing, but it's also like, you have to understand the hypervigilance and the stress and the other things that go underneath it. So we'll get into more of that. Like It's an and both here, and that's why I'm good at this repatterning work, because I have my own number, But anyway, I made all those teams and ended up, playing at the highest level in the state, and was on my club team out National World Cup, and got recruited. And I went to the University of Hartford actually my freshman year and played under coach Mark Krikorian, who was a Pinkerton alum. And we went to the Elite 8 that year, which was pretty legit for an NCAA like America East team. It was pretty incredible. I have like the Elite 8 ring, and that was really neat. And then I just was so incredibly homesick, and I knew I wanted to come back to New Hampshire, and it's really where I wanted to play the whole time. But I didn't get recruited to UNH. I got recruited there, and I was like, all right. So I had this like master plan in my head. I'm like, I'm going to go to Hartford, I'm going to like crush it, and then I'm going to transfer. And I did.
Yeah, you did.
And I played at UNH for 4 years. I was the captain my senior year, and
damn right you were.
Got my scholarship.
Yeah. Amazing.
Go Cats.
Go Cats. What was the experience of being a D1 athlete at UNH like for you?
The best.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the best. Yeah. It was the ultimate dream for me. It was like me doing exactly what I had set out the whole time. It was like D1 or bust. I'm going to play at the highest level. The hardest part was that I had a knee injury. I had a chronic, my kneecap used to sublux. And I laugh now because I'm like, oh, if I had only known Natalie Tilton then.
Yeah, right.
Except she's Natalie. Like younger than me. We love you, Natalie. If I'd only known Dr. Chris Dawson, my chiropractor, then, there's all these things that I wish then I had known, because my career would have been different. And, but it was meant to be that way. And I relearned how to walk 3 times. I had 3 huge surgeries on this knee.
Oh, wow.
I mean, full on like, not reconstruction, but, crazy procedures. And I did not miss a preseason. I was playing on a torn VMO muscle my senior year.
Oh my gosh.
It was wild, but it was like, what else am I going to do? It's my senior year. I'm the captain of the team. Like, give me some cortisone and let's go. Mm-hmm. And so I did it, and I played. And I think, if I look at it now, it's like, do I think I could have achieved more as an athlete had I not had to deal with that? For sure. But I put it in other places and I put it into leadership, and, like what you learn about yourself when you are spending 3 hours a day in the training room while your team is practicing and you're literally learning how to rebend your leg and building this muscle back. And I had to do that 3 times over in my career of 4 years. Like, do the math. I had 1 spring season that I was able to play. I had surgery all the other times. And so I think about like what I learned from that about myself and about tenacity and adversity and my love for the game, and like what that actually made in me. So then, other things, I was the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Council. So I focused on that. I was doing advocacy work on campus for the athletic department. It was just like, where can I put this?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you were a 4.0 student as well.
I did all right.
Yeah. Did you have aspirations to play beyond college?
I mean, there were no opportunities for that.
Right.
Let's go back in time, right? 2004.
No opportunities for that?
Not really. No. Not at like a viable.
Really only at like the America
I did play,
Olympic World Cup
right.
level.
US. I mean, that wasn't going to happen. So I had the mindset for it. I didn't have the knee for it. I did play for the New Hampshire Phantoms. It was a women's semi-pro league for like a season. Yeah. After the last surgery. Cause I was like, I got to get back on the field.
Yeah.
And I still play at Seacoast United every Monday night, still in the women's league.
Yeah. You still got it. Yeah. You're still kicking, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I think like that's the thing that I'm so grateful for is that it's literally a miracle that at 44, after all the things I've gone through and the number of surgeons who have said to me, like, if you were my daughter, I'd never let you play again, that I'm playing, that I played a double header on Monday night is just remarkable. Like it is not lost on me what a privilege that is. Yeah.
You are a walking miracle. I'm not surprised. So you loved your experience at UNH so much that you were like, I would like to start my career here. What was the first opportunity that you got to work at UNH and why was it appealing to you?
Oh my gosh. Like a lot of us, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I applied to grad school because I think a lot of people do that. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was an English journalism major. So it was English with journalism as a concentration.
Don't get into journalism.
Well, I didn't. I was smart, right? Yeah, I had that. And then I was like, when I learned the whole if it bleeds, it leads thing, I realized like I didn't have the heart for that.
Oh, yeah.
Like I wasn't made for that. And I decided to cut that and just finish strong with the English major. And then I got a minor in psychology and in sports studies. So I had like all these other sort of like discipline pieces to bolster the English, but I've always known I was a writer. I always knew I was a communicator. I feel so smart now, like when I think back on it, because all this writing stuff, social media did not exist. And I remember just thinking like, I'm going to need this. I know I'm going to need it. I'm going to need the ability to communicate and to write. And this job opportunity came available at UNH for the marketing coordinator position. And I remember reading the job description and seeing things on there like in-game fan entertainment and
right in the athletic department.
In the athletic department at UNH, manages the mascot team, like manages the cheerleading team. Does, graphic design and newspaper advertisements and newspaper ads. Like I learned how to design those on Photoshop in the, early days. I would write the PA script. And so I saw this job description. I was like, that is so fun. Like I am Mrs. UNH here. Like I am it, like I bleed blue. I was the captain of the team, president of SAC. I'm like, I bet I could do this. And I also was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I applied to grad school. I apply for this job. It comes down to me and this other woman, and she was more qualified. But because of the relationships that I had in the athletic department and the testimonials essentially that came from my head coach and from all these other coaches and from everybody at UNH, I got the job. And I remember, Dot Sheehan, who's my boss and one of my earliest mentors, saying like, I'm just going to be straight with you. Like you're less qualified than this other person, but what everybody has said is that no one's going to work harder. And I was like, watch me. It was the best challenge that could have been thrown down. And it was the most entrepreneurial career. I had so much freedom. I had so much. I really learned the saying, it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah. I would do the craziest things. I mean, I had skydivers coming on the field with footballs. I had mascots going through the posts with, I did crazy stuff. And I would just go up and be like, so sorry, but that was cool, right? And I had so much fun. And I got to mentor 12 to 15 student interns every year because I needed them. I was running 7 ticketed sports at a time. There was no way I could do that by myself and one person. So I got to hang out with college students and like be their mentor. I got to teach sport marketing. And we had this thing called the Cat Crew, and we would go out on the ice and we do shooting people on the human puck. And we had
human puck.
Oh, have you never heard of this?
What is that?
Okay, so I think that they don't do it anymore.
Gee, I wonder why.
So it's a big, huge slingshot that you hook from both benches across the ice and has a pad on it. And then there's a big, like, those high jump mats that you land in. We had it up on its side at the boards.
Okay.
And so then 2 people would be at the big mat at the boards. And then we would pull the mat all the way back and someone would be sitting with a helmet on and they'd sit on a saucer. And then the whole crowd would count down and then you would shoot the person on the ice and they'd hit these big, like, foam bowling pins.
Okay.
And we would shoot people across the ice. It was so fun.
So they don't do that anymore.
I don't think they do that anymore, which is like a real bummer, but it was a big fan favorite.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my job. I literally got paid to do that and then go, negotiate corporate contracts and cheer on student athletes. I would do the music and I became so good at fan experience and creating an emotional experience in the room that would not only inspire the fans, but it would inspire the athletes on the court. And I was an athlete. So I knew, what that equation felt like. Like I knew what it felt like to be in like an overtime situation and a must win. And so I would know exactly what song to put on and get the fans going crazy. And it was just fun. It was so fun. That whole experience, I would not be able to do what I've done in my business and in my career as a speaker, as doing events, coaching, supporting clients, doing their versions of that, had I not had those 10 years of that experience. And I grew up there. I was there for 14 years of my life. It's in really formative years, 2000 all the way to 2014. So my whole 20s all the way up and, into my 30s.
We'll be back with more from Amber in a moment, but a quick pause to hype up one of my absolute, hands down, favorite places on the Seacoast, Portsmouth's LANEY and Lou. It's my favorite place to take business meetings, spontaneously run into old friends, and get introduced to new ones. Plus the lighting, the Wi-Fi, and the outlets make it an ideal setting for getting some real work done. Now, all of that's great, but the magical food and beverages are where they shine. Recently, I can't get enough of the epic egg sandwiches in the mornings. Eggs, pesto, avocado, tomatoes, cheddar cheese, all on sourdough bread. My gosh, my mouth is watering right now just thinking about it. I'm also a sucker for the Iron Woman smoothie in the afternoons, and when I want a sweet treat, the superfood donuts or the almond butter dates are actually to die for. Trust me, they're incredible. At LANEY and Lou, they create real food, feed the soul, inspire community, and they buy local and organic whenever possible. Plus, they're woman-owned. I mean, what is better than that? Maybe this. LANEY and Lou is now offering sustainably raised chicken and salmon. Plus, they're really ramping up their catering business, which also includes offerings from their sister businesses, Ginger Fox and Palette. Oh, and their spring menu launches on April 2nd, which I personally cannot wait for. So what are you waiting for? Get your butt on over there. It's open 7 days a week. The patio is opening up soon, and they accept online ordering. It's almost too good to be true at LANEY and Lou. And how's this for synergy? Because the blenders behind LANEY and Lou's Tea is another woman-owned business out of Manchester, 27 Teas. They've been hand blending teas for 8 years with one simple mission: to change the way New England drinks tea. A tea lover, owner Margaret Gay once walked into cafes, found 10 ways to order coffee, and just one sad-looking tea bag option. For her morning tea, she knew she deserved better, so she created 27 Teas. They specialize in both high-quality loose-leaf tea and plastic-free, plant-based, biodegradable tea sachets. Every blend is handcrafted in small batches in Manchester. Their packaging makes brewing simple, guiding customers with clear steep times and temperatures so anyone can make the perfect cup using their bold, fun, and flavor-forward blends that convert even coffee drinkers, which, honestly, that sounds amazing because I probably could benefit from cutting back on the caffeine. But I definitely don't want to cut back on the social interactions that can happen around drinking a hot beverage, so I'm thinking of converting to a tea drinker as I say these things. And I will get me some tea by visiting 27teas.com using the promo code STORIES at checkout, which will get me 15% off of my online or in-person order. Offer lasts the next few weeks, so if you want to join me in drinking some high-quality tea from a woman-owned business in New Hampshire, I suggest you place an order on 27teas.com as soon as possible. Thank you, LANEY and Lou, and 27 Teas for supporting the show. Now back to my conversation with Amber Lilyestrom, who opens up about the internal struggles she silently wrestled with in both her teenage and early adult years. Here's Amber again.
I mean, I think that, just in general, like body image is a very complex thing. I think for my fellow millennial women. It was an interesting timeline to kind of grow through. And I think about the way media portrayed women's bodies and beauty and all of that, and just sort of like just that cultural influence that we were constantly being like in our little 17 magazine and like what we're looking at, you know, poor like Jessica Simpson, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, like that whole, those were
gosh,
like our girls, you know, but like that was what we were. I mean, I was graduating high school around that time when that was like all right.
Media ruined Britney. Oh my gosh. Just a quick aside. Did you hear her audiobook?
No.
I listened to her audiobook of her memoir. She was not the narrator, but she narrated the opening. Her voice sounds nothing like the person that we know. And just like what the media and the exposure did to her and the paparazzi.
Poor
just
Brit.
Heartbreaking. So
loved her so much.
Pouring out for Brit.
Brit, we love you. It's not your fault. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, I think that like all the like tension, the stress, you know, obviously I was like a little high strung in terms of like, I had a level of hypervigilance of like, I got to get a college scholarship. I'm 10 years old. Like I'm already holding that, you know, I'm already aware of a lot of these things. And the thing that's crazy is that my parents didn't even know that I thought that. Like they didn't know, but I was so observant of what was happening for them that I was just trying to notch down anything that I was contributing to the mix. And, you know, I remember this story would like crush my parents. In 8th grade, like I didn't even bring home the paper that was like the Washington, D.C. trip that everybody goes on. Cause I was like, I don't want to like ask them for it. I'm not even going to burden them. It's like too much, you know? So I didn't even bring it home. Like I just didn't want to be a burden. So it was a big part of my identity, you know, back then that I'm really aware of. And I do this work with people now, you know, and like helping them identify these things in the ways that they're showing up, you know, in their life, their relationships, and of course in their businesses and their work. And so I was like really kind of burying it. And I was using food. I started using food and exercise as a coping mechanism around that, you know, little past puberty, adolescent time, things are really intense. And I am doing what I know to do, you know? And I was like, I loved, like, I would eat sugar, like I would hide it. I would over exercise. And then of course, like when I went off and lived on my own in college and all these things, it was like, obviously I could do it differently, but it really affected me in a pretty significant way all the way through my 20s. And at a certain point in my mid 20s, I decided to start doing like fitness competitions. And this was after my soccer, like officially my soccer career was over and I was just sort of playing rec at this point. But the reason why I decided to do that, you know, total transparency was like, oh, well, they're going to help me figure out how to like deal with this. And what this was my body, you know, my like self-hatred for my body. And I met incredible women there. I met incredible women who were entrepreneurs and who were doing work that started to really inspire me. It was like leadership and coaching, and they were just operating on a different frequency. There was like a different conversation happening. They were doing money differently. And I remember just being really curious. And I had always been a curious kid like that. I remember when I was 9, 10, I would be like, why are Shauna's parents like, they seem like they have a different thing going on, you know, like they got a new Explorer. Like I just started like noticing things, you know, about like financial reality and like versions of reality and why our life was like the way that it was. And, you know, I started kind of calculating this in my head and being like, and just very curious. And so I met these women through this, I worked out with this woman named Kathy Savage Fitness is where I met Julie.
That's a great name.
Isn't it a great name? She's pretty legendary. I love Kathy. Met so many incredible women. Julie Costa, who's a local. I met Julie there.
Seacoast Stories alum and previous dinner club attendee.
I love her. And yeah. And so I learned pretty quickly like that wasn't going to be the answer. And I remember this one day I was standing backstage and I am like neon orange tan, right? I'm wearing like the tiniest little thing. Oh, I also met Alex.
Alex Bynum. Yes. We love Alex.
And I'm back there in these little heels and this whole thing. And I just remember thinking, what are you doing? I was like, what are you doing? You don't even get to talk. They're just looking at your body. This is so ridiculous. And it was just like a moment, like it just hit me in the head. I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was so jacked. I got so strong.
Oh, yeah.
I learned so much about my body. And yet my body was just saying like, I don't really want to do this. You know, this is like too hard for me.
Right. And it's also, I mean, I don't know too much about this world, but it's not good for you.
I mean, it wasn't the healthiest thing, you know, it wasn't. And Kathy was an amazing mentor. And like, she said to me, you know, Amber, you're amazing. You have a beautiful life. You have a beautiful career. You're like doing so well. Like, go have a baby, you know? And she wasn't saying that. No, she knew that's what I wanted. Like, go live your life. Like, you don't need this, you know? And at the time, of course, I couldn't receive it. I was just like, I'm just a failure. I felt bad for myself. I did the self-pity thing. But there was a point, I remember I was 29 and I have known my earliest dream is that I wanted to be a mom from day one. Always wanted to be a mom. Always knew I would be a mom. Also knew I was going to be the mom to a daughter. And I remember I'm 29 and I'm like, okay, I'm married now. Like I'm with my husband. This is my person. We're going to have
second husband.
Yep. We're going to build a family. I got to get my body so that it can actually like have a baby, you know, and like come to reality. But I knew I needed to go to therapy and work on this. And so I went and I sat down with an eating disorder specialist. And I remember the day she said to me, you know, Amber, you have an eating disorder. And I was like, what are you talking? I was like, no, I don't. I remember I just like could not.
Oh, so you never put the pieces together?
No,
you never
I was just living that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I was living that crushing restrictive eating over exercising thing. And it was just stress and intensity 24/7 all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And this wonderful woman, and I can't remember what her name was. I know she's retired now, but she was such an important person on the pattern interrupt journey to really meet me there and give me permission to like accept that this was a coping mechanism that I was using to help deal with all of my childhood trauma and all these things. And that it was actually a form of adaptive intelligence, that it was like a smart strategy because it was like something I felt like I had control over. And I think one of the biggest things in the work that I do with my clients is like, we have to make people right about the things that they think is the right thing to do. Does that make sense? It's like making you wrong for biting your nails is not going to make you stop biting your nails. Right? It's like, let's have compassion around why you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be witnesses to each other for what that is. Let's be a soft place to land. And she really taught me that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I knew though was that I was going to be the mom to a little girl. I knew it. And I just was like, I cannot carry this baton forward. You know, and I know my mom struggled with food in different ways and never really talked about it. But like, I think every generation of women before me had their own issues with this. And I knew I needed to drop it. I wasn't going to carry it on. I did not want my daughter to wake up and look in the mirror and hate herself. You know, I never wanted that. And so I knew I had to take radical personal responsibility to like break that. And I did, you know, and
How?
I did. How?
Yeah.
Well, support. Part one, work with someone who can help you with it. Secondly, I had to be really disciplined with myself. So I had to literally say to myself, because the pattern was so prevalent, I would have to like pack my food the day before and have it like set. And it'd be like, this is what you're having tomorrow and you're going to eat your lunch. And it would be like putting my clothes out for the next day. So I didn't do this whole thing in the closet of like overwhelming myself with what I was going to wear. And there were times where I would be like, if you can't be kind to yourself, you're not going to use a mirror to get ready for work today. And I would just like be disciplined with myself about it because I knew it wasn't helping me. You know, that old loop and saying those things, I knew it wasn't helping me. And I think that really around that age, right before I became a mom, it was like all of the self-hatred I had bottled up from my childhood, from what happened when I was really little, like came to a full head. And it was the time for me to like, if I want to become who I know that I'm meant to be in this lifetime, the way that I'm meant to help people, because the other thing that came from the early abuse was a knowing that I didn't come through that the way that I did for nothing, that I was meant to help other people sometime in my life who've gone through really hard things. And I think the story about being in the room with the kids and seeing them struggle, I had such an empathy and compassion for that. And for whatever reason, I came through it differently. And I felt like that was some sort of like message of like, you have to help people with this because you figured that part out. And so I always carried that with me. I had like a vision of myself at a really young age, like you're going to speak and you're going to write books and you're going to help people. And I didn't know how or what or any of what that meant. I was just playing with Barbies, you know, but I had like the vision of you're going to help people. And so I'd carried that in the background my whole life, like through my athletic, you know, and I think being a captain and all this and that adversity, going through the knee injury and all these things and like staying positive and like coming through the hard stuff and still giving. through it all. You know, it was like, okay, Amber, this is where the line in the sand. No more of this. You can't be in the closet on the day of your rehearsal dinner. You're about to marry the love of your life, and you're like having a crash out because you don't know what to wear and you feel embarrassed of your body the day before your wedding. Like, I don't want you to feel this way anymore. You know, it was like that. And it was like I had this two people inside of me. I had like the version of me that was like enduring and had my back, but that voice wasn't always as loud sometimes as the one that was like, you know, really hurt and really in pain.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who can resonate. Something that keeps coming up is you're a deep feeler. You are an intuitive. You've said multiple times that I just had this knowing. I just had this knowing when I was playing with my Barbies that I was going to be on stages writing books. I just had this knowing that I was going to be a D1 athlete, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if you can put this into words, but when you're having a vision, when you have this knowing, what does that feel like in your body?
Fun question. Well, I see. I think so. I see it. Like I get visuals. So like the lake, and I might see something that I've seen, but then I can like perceive it somatically. Like I can perceive the vision of like the sensation of that actually is like.
Okay. So you paint a picture in your head and then
I can like feel myself there.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever that is. So like I can see myself speaking. I can see myself standing on the dock. And honestly, when I was in the manifestation reality creation mode from 2009.
What a term.
Oh yeah. So we spent a lot of time there. From 2009 to 2015, the number of times I imagined diving off that dock and feeling the water droplets on my skin. I'd never necessarily done that, but I had done it in my mind a million times. Like the smell of the house, walking in, seeing the fireplace, the sound of the rocks under my tires with my windows down, driving up the driveway. And then I would, you know, when I would come home from my parents' house, I would sometimes take the long shortcut, right? I would turn down this road and I would go up the hill and I would imagine myself pushing my daughter in a baby carriage up the hill. Like, I'm going to push my daughter up here. I'm going to be running on this road. It's like, now it's my recording studio for my podcast. You know, I just imagined it. It's like, that's where If the Dream Is in You, It's For You came from. It's the
catchphrases, the
living it before you're living it. And then when it becomes the thing, I remember my first live event speaking at 3S, I imagined the sound of my boots walking on that stage 1 million times. I imagined the sensation of the lights standing there and the women, the heartbeats in the room 1 million times before the day actually happened. And so I think that when I get a knowing, I get the feeling of like something, I enter the scene of it and then I just play the scene out. And the more real it feels, the more I know it's for me.
This level of intuition and visualization that you are speaking to, is this something each and every single one of us is capable of channeling, or do you think that you are just special?
No, I think everybody can do this. I think that we all have different clairs, if you will, right? You know, like the sort of like my daughter talks about it, that she's more clairaudient. So she hears things more than she sees. And I have some clients that are not as clairvoyant. I'm going to use the term clairvoyant, right? They don't see. They're more sentient. They have a sense. They have a feeling, right? There's like different ways that you perceive. But I think becoming really intimate with yourself about like, how have I manifested? So how did you manifest? Like, how have you gotten to be sitting in this chair holding this microphone with your logo on it, you know, with this many episodes in?
I just do things. Like I just have an idea and then I do it. People want to give me credit for them. Like I just have an idea and then I execute. It's not that hard.
Yeah. I don't know though. But there's a lot of like stars that align in order for you to step forward. Like, do you ever have resistance on the path to do something?
Yeah, but it doesn't bother me.
You don't give it a lot of, you're such a Capricorn.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I have haters for sure. And I have,
well, let's cross our legs to that while we're at it.
Why, thank you. Yes. Yes. Men on the internet get so threatened by me crossing my legs.
It says a lot about them.
And so I'm just going to keep doing it. Yes. Thank you. No, resistance doesn't really stop me from doing anything.
Everybody tune into that. Do it like Troy does. Yeah. Just go do it.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, we're all wired so differently, and we all have reasons why we are able to charge into things and why we're not. And so I'm actually really passionate about understanding my own wiring and my own reality creation process, and then helping other people crack what theirs is. Because once you get your own number with it and you know what your process is, then you can just continue to repeat it. And then, you got it. And then it's fun. Life just gets to be really fun.
Yeah. And this kept coming up for me as I was reading. You'll love this. I was reading your latest book on the yoga retreats, and I'm just overlooking the ocean, and I'm reading your words, and I'm in such bliss. But what kept coming up for me as I was reading was this level of artistry in your poems. I can feel how deeply you had to tap into yourself to produce these words. And I just feel like it brings about a level of inner knowing that is so difficult to tap into these days. I used to be able to write in the way that you did. And these days, I can't get there. I can't get into that mindset. There's too many distractions. There's too many things going on. There's too many ways to look for answers outside of yourself. So how do you do that? How do you reach this level in today's modern world, which I feel like is only becoming more difficult for all of us to do?
Yeah. I mean, it's a decision. And I think it has to align with what your goal is and what you're here to create. And I think we have to be really clear about that, where I think life can feel very confusing because we're all here born into survival mode. So many people are just trying to make ends meet and survive, right? And the model that we've learned is I have to work really hard. I have to do all these things. And, and a lot of people are out there doing work that they don't want to be doing. And they're not having that much fun, and it shows, and then they feel that in their life. And so it's like, my gosh, well, where am I going to find time to go write a poem, or bliss out? I don't have time for that. And I think for me, what the poetry, I feel really fortunate that the poems just write themselves through me. My work is to just be quiet long enough to let them come through. And this project in and of itself, writing Little Big, was like a year in the making. And then finally one day I was like, enough, just publish it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And then a couple more poems wrote themselves while I was finalizing the manuscript, and then it came together, and I love this little book.
I do too. It's called Little Big Beautiful Things, published late 2025. Self-published, right?
I really love how loved yours looks. The copy of it.
It's this special. Is poor packing in Mexico.
You know what? That's what it's here for. I love it.
I have two poems of many. I loved all of them, but I have two poems that I've starred, and I would like to read one of them, and then I'd like to talk about it.
Love that.
This one is on page 80. It's called You Can Only Choose to. Number 1, a life you actually love. Makes no sense on paper. Cherry on top. Pinch me. Please don't wake me up. Make this thing last forever, ever, ever, God. That's option 1. Option 2. Real deal friends, solid gold, know your deepest, darkest, body in the trunk, bring the shovel, dig the hole, never tell a soul kinds of friends. Number 3, the kind of free you've lived 1,000 years for. Exhale, belly breath, all the way down to the root, dancing in the streets, blessing everyone you meet, kissing your mama's feet, saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I get to be me. Number 4. A heart that knows that lights out, holy grail, holy heaven and hell, holy I'm going all the way down with the ship and Jack and that necklace. I'll never be the same again kind of love. Those are the 4 realities you can have, but you can only have 2 of them. Why is that?
I don't know. It's just a game.
Do you have all of those? You have the love, you have the friends, you have the freedom.
I do. I do.
Yeah, you've got them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't write it if I didn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why can you only choose 2? That's what I'm fixated on.
It was just a joke.
Oh, okay.
But which 2 do you pick?
If I can only have 2, which would I choose? Oh, that's tough. I want to be like Amber. Free. So number 3.
3 is good. That's my first pick.
Yeah. I want to have that kind of level of freedom. Man, love, friends, or a life I love. Wow.
I know 3 kind of encompasses it all though, doesn't it?
4, love. Love makes the world go round.
I love it. That's the chapter you're in too. Because I feel like in an earlier chapter, you would have chosen 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely got 2 right now.
You do.
The
you got
people
that.
on the Seacoast are
body in the trunk
are the best. And I've got bodies in the trunk, but we don't need to talk about that. We're here to talk about you. We might have one more poem read at the end of this conversation. So on a more serious note, so getting back to your story, as I alluded to, Ben is your second husband. You had a first husband, college sweetheart.
Yeah.
Didn't last very long, the marriage, right?
Yeah. We were together for like 6 years prior. And then marriage was sort of the crossing over of realizing like, oh, we're going in different directions. Our lives were, and we really did it. We built this beautiful house and we had this incredible wedding and we did it. And I think then we went into that movie and it was like, wait, oh, this isn't the movie we thought it was going to be. Yeah. And, I think we're both better for it and we learned a lot through it.
And so when you married Ben, just a couple years later, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Any fears coming to mind for you then about,
No.
hey, I've made this mistake before?
Not one. No, it was like, oh, this is the way the road was meant to bend. And then it put me, which we'll talk about my son's story, but I really learned that. And I look back on it now and it's like every single thing had to happen in exactly the way it did so that we could cross paths to meet each other to become Ani and Alex's mom and dad.
Yeah.
And that was always the way it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can look back on that with 100% assurity and 0 regret, and I guess I say that maybe for whoever needed to hear that today, because if you had asked me that while I was in it, I would have been like, but I know it's true. I know it's true. And I feel obviously blessed and grateful for that. And I think everybody in the story knows it's true.
Shout out to Ben, the editor of the Homeward podcast.
He's a rock star and the lighting engineer tech.
Yes, he's done the lighting
show.
for us, and you record a lot of your solo episodes out in the woods, so he has to edit you crunching leaves and
the dog's collar. That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We keep it really real around here.
Yeah. No, we love it. We do love it because we love being outside, and it's something that all New Hampshire children should grow up taking part in, but especially young girls. I know the self-described forest fairy Amber would co-sign on that, and that is where a wonderful organization like Girl Scouts of the Green and White Mountains comes in. They serve girls across New Hampshire and Vermont. Girl Scouts as a whole is the world's largest girl-led leadership program, helping girls grow into young women with courage, confidence, and character, the kind of people who actually go out and make things better. Their research has shown that Girl Scouts are more likely than others to develop a strong sense of self, have positive values, seek challenges and learn from setbacks, develop and maintain healthy relationships, and exhibit problem-solving skills. They are also more likely to earn excellent grades and graduate from high school and college. And how's this? Girl Scouts fuel the female leadership pipeline. More than half of all business leaders, 80% of female tech leaders, 76% of female U.S. senators, and all 3 female U.S. secretaries of state were once Girl Scouts. So, if you've got a girl in your life or know a family that does, this is something worth checking out. Plus, there are a ton of ways to participate in our local chapter, whether it's joining a troop, going to summer camp, traveling, or even participating virtually. Your girl's new best friends are waiting for her. She can start her Girl Scout adventure by visiting girlscoutsgwm.org. So you had always wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And so once you're happily married to Ben, you're like, all right, I'm ready to accomplish this lifelong goal. I've got my mind and my body more prepared to be a mom and to have a baby girl. Can you take me into the pregnancy process and what emotions were coming to mind for you as you were on the verge of accomplishing this lifelong
dream? I
dream?
think there's another important part of the story that I haven't said. In my 20s, I had endometriosis. And so I was honestly, like, because I played soccer at such a high level and because I had all this dysfunction going on, I didn't really deal with my cycle very much. I wasn't having it because I was basically like in a amenorrheic situation.
Yeah. Can you explain what endometriosis is? I feel like that's a thing we probably hear about a lot, but it's like, oh, I know what that is. And then you're like, wait, I don't actually know what that is.
It was essentially I had like fibroids that were in my uterus, and sometimes they can come outside of your uterus too. I was like stage 2, so it wasn't super, super extreme, but I would basically like every time I would have my period every month, I would be extremely ill, like bedridden, like extremely, extremely sick. And it's really hard because, I'd be up at my boyfriend at the time's house, and I'd be like bedridden, and it's like so embarrassing. Like what's wrong? Oh, she's having her period. But I was, and that was the experience, of living in a female body. I mean, I just wish every man could have at least one round of it just to like feel what it feels like. And I also want to say too, like I am acutely aware of the role of the trauma in my life and the emotional like burying of things that were coming through the expression of my uterus. So like, I also really believe in that in terms of like, it's all connected, and it's not just a body. We're a whole system, and our body is the place where the emotions are embodied and where that expression is happening. And so of course I can look back on that now and be like, whoa, that was so crazy. Your body was telling you every time you would go and visit the family, you'd be bedridden. Like, hello, the call's coming from inside the house. But I didn't know, And so then I'm getting prepared to do another fitness competition and thinking I'm still like in my delusion, like I'm going to do it the healthy way now. And I remember during it, my period came back, and it was the first time in like years. And I remember I was seeing a reproductive endocrinologist, and I said, they were like, call us when this happens. And I'm like, okay. And they go, great, we're going to get started. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, with your fertility treatments. And I was like, what? I was not like tuned in that was what was going to happen. But basically they were like, Amber, read between the lines. Like now is the time. If you're married, you want to have children, your body is telling us right now, we have to go with this. And so how
old are you at this time?
I was 30.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. And I went and we did all the process, and we ended up doing one round of IUI, and I got pregnant on my first try, which is like a less than 2% chance given the circumstances of like what was happening with my body and IUI in general. And I got pregnant, and
IUI is what?
Intrauterine insemination.
Oh.
So it's for a fertility treatment, but not like the level of IVF. So yeah. So I get pregnant. It's miraculous, but like, I didn't know it was that miraculous. I'm just like, oh yeah, we're going to get pregnant. Like I need help because I've had issues with my fertility, my whole life. And I'm pregnant, and I'm like, sick as a dog in my first trimester. I don't even know how I went to work. I am like eating saltines at my desk with my head on my desk, like perking up to go to the meetings, and I'm doing the best that I can. And I am so excited. It's like the greatest thing in my life. Like I'm going to have this baby, but I'm also like experiencing pregnancy. And it was really intense. And then I think this story really like paints the picture of sort of like where my mindset was at that time. So it's 2013, it's August. I am a day before my due date. And I had been kind of like, I had gone on modified bed rest in July, like the month prior, because I was like having contractions. Work was really stressful. I was still running at like a full tilt while I was pregnant, just acting like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to like have a baby and I'm going to come back to work. And I was like still in that mind frame of I have to keep going. I have to keep running. Like this is my life. I just got to keep pounding the pavement, right? Division I athlete working in a Division I athletic department. And so it's the day before my due date. And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I feel really sick. Like I just felt terrible. And it was like coming in waves. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And so I called my sister-in-law, who is an ER nurse at one point, and I was like, I feel really bad. Like I'm supposed to go to work in a couple hours. Like I had emailed my boss and was like, I'm having cramps. I'm just going to like take it slow this morning and I'll be in at noon. And my sister-in-law goes, how far apart are your cramps? I was like, oh, I don't know, like 5 minutes. She's like, so you're in labor and maybe you should call your doctor. And like, the reason why this is so relevant is like, first of all, I'm a first time mom, so I don't know my ass from my elbow at this point. But like, secondly, I'm also a person who has like enormously high pain tolerance. So I'm just feeling like I'm just having cramps. It's completely fine. And third of all, I'm in labor and I don't know it. Like this is like how sort of disconnected I had sort of had to become from myself and in that chapter of my life to like continue to be living the story that I'm in. Right? With myself, not about anybody else, like me with me and what I expect of myself. Anyway, I get on the phone with my doctor and she says, you do not sound like you can drive yourself. You do not sound good. You're in labor. Come right to the hospital. Don't go to the clinic. And I'm like, okay. It's just like, do you have a neighbor that can drive you? And I quickly look and I scan the neighborhood and I'm like, only the weird ones. I go, yep. And what do you think I do? I go down, I get my little Outback. I let the contraction pass. I throw it in reverse. I drive myself to the hospital. I'm like calling my mom on the way. I'm like, Mom, I think you have to come. I think I'm going to have a baby today. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm driving myself. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I didn't have time to ask somebody else. I just had to get to the hospital. So I drive myself to the hospital. I get there.
How long a drive is this?
It was like maybe 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I was 6 centimeters dilated when I got there. So like, do the math on that. On my first child, right? And so I get there, they're like not wanting to check me. I mean, just, I wish I could like watch the movie back of myself, like walking in the parking lot, holding onto cars, like basically crawling up to the desk and being like, I need to go be seen.
Right. And your husband, Ben, police officer.
He's on shift. He's
duty.
working.
Okay.
I called him. He's like, okay. So he's getting off shift to come and meet me at the hospital. Yeah. And so I'm there and then they check me and they're like, okay, you are literally in full labor right now. You're 6 centimeters. After I got an epidural, I was 9 centimeters like 2 minutes later. I was full throttle, like pushing D1 athlete level. I'm going to have a baby right now, you know? And I had this story in my head. My mom took like 7 days to birth me. If you ask your mom her birth story, she probably will tell you something similar. My mom's like, I was in labor for 72 hours and, you were 3 weeks late. And I'm like, I'm so glad I was a burden before I even came into the world. That's my origin story. So I just assumed my daughter was going to be late and it was going to be so hard and all this. And now I'm like in here trying to have a baby. And I pushed for 4 hours. And there was a certain point where the doctor came in and she was like, you now have a fever and you're not doing well, which was like nothing I'd ever really heard before because I'm literally like Hercules. You know, like that's how I see like this body can just survive anything. Like I can throw it on my back. I got it. And for her to be like, you're not okay. And then she goes, and your baby's not okay. And immediately I'm like, let's go, roll me in, cut me open. I don't care. Do it, whatever you have to do. And so they did, they rolled me in. At this point, like I am now sick. Like I'm not doing well. Right. And they're like, okay, they give me the spinal tap to create the block, right. So that I can have the C-section. And then they lay me down on the table. And I remember like Jack Johnson music is on and I'm just like, yeah, I love this, like vibing. Jack Johnson, Better Together was our like recessional song at our wedding. And so I'm just like, this is amazing, and Ben's going to come in and now I'm like all drugged up and we're going to have a baby. And like, I don't have to do this pushing thing anymore. And I'm feeling like all this relief. And then all of a sudden I realized like the music's not on anymore. And I'm starting to have like an enormously difficult time breathing. Like I'm laying back on the table and I'm like I cannot take a deep breath to save myself. Like I can't. And I start like gasping and I whisper to the anesthesiologist who's like behind me, like, I can't breathe. And then all of a sudden there's a bag valve mask over my face and I see the nurse's hand like pumping it. And so they're like helping me breathe and I can feel them helping me breathe. I can feel my lungs like doing that, but I'm not doing it. And I realized like very quickly, I'm like fading, like I'm fading away. Like I'm going to die. Like I just literally like in an instant, I can't breathe and I passed out. And I don't know time, space, reality, like how long all of these things happened, but I was just like not there. And in that space between, I had these vivid visions. The first one was of me speaking the same vision I had when I was 5. And the words were, you're not doing it. I'm like, what? What? You're not doing it. And I felt this like deep, heavy sadness, like this like grief. Like I'm not doing it. Like I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was like kind of quick, but then all of a sudden I had this perspective change and I could see myself in the room. I had like the bird's eye view of myself on the table. And I could also see Ben where he was in the room walking around with his little scrubs on, holding his little camera, getting ready. He was waiting for them to come get him.
I could see my parents in the waiting room. I could see my mom like walking back and forth. And I was just like, what is happening right now? You know, like in my conscious, like, what is happening right now? And all of a sudden I just felt this sensation of like, okay, whatever is supposed to happen right now, all I know is this little girl is going to be so loved. Like, all I know is like all the people are here. Like, everybody loves her. Like, I've done all the right things so that she could have them. And I just was like, okay. And I just fully surrendered. And when I surrendered in that moment, I felt this sensation of like pure bliss. Like, it's like human words can't touch it. It was this feeling of like, everything's okay. And you have done everything you could do, and you've given all the love, and they've given you all the love. And like, that reciprocity is the secret. Like, that is the point. That love is the point. And in that moment, like, of this utter surrender, was like, okay, it was like a light switch flipped back on, and I was awake and I was conscious and I was there, and the anesthesiologist was behind me, and he yelled to the surgeon, or to the, the OB who was on my left hip, and he said, go, go, go. And she started the procedure, and I was like back again. I was able to like talk to the nurses, and I like could breathe again. And then my daughter emerged into the world. Ani was born, and she had all of her fingers, and she had all of her toes. And I remember just like all this dark hair. And I was like, I didn't mess it up. I didn't mess it up. Like, she's okay. And I didn't even know that I had that thought, that I would think that it would be like my fault somehow, And this beautiful baby came out into the world, and like her whole life opened. And my whole life opened in ways that I could have never, put words to. I couldn't understand in that moment. But I knew that everything had changed, and I also became a mom all at the same time. And it would take me time to like really process that full story, to like understand the pieces of it. But what it opened was this portal of, it's never going to be the same. And you're alive, and your life is a gigantic privilege and opportunity, and you have to use it. You have to use it. You can't still hide. You can't live in the fear anymore.
I know you said you lost all concept of time and space, but were the doctors in the room able to tell you just how dire the situation was?
No, because, later, apparently that situation. So what happened was, I had what's called a high spinal tap. So essentially it was like it froze my diaphragm. And this high spinal can be a fatal situation. Like, it can be really serious. But they had me, they kept me safe, and my body was strong, and my body, but what I found out later was that this particular anesthesiologist in his like 25-year career had never one time had that happen with a patient. And I just remember when the doctor told me that, she's like, oh, we were talking about your case. And it was like he saw a ghost. He'd never had that happen in his entire career. And I just thought, I don't know why he needed that to happen, but for some reason I did. And this story has been needed to be shared, because what I saw there was the piece that I take with me. And it actually is like what's melted so much of the fear. It's that ultimately, I don't think that we're going to be afraid when we are personally dying. I don't think that that's actually what it's about. I think it's about the gift of being here. And so if I can live from that knowing rather than the fear of dying, it completely changes the axis of my life. It changes how I'm going to live. And I don't have to carry that anymore. And I can actually like just be in the fullest expression of myself while my heart is beating and while I'm here in this body, the way that it is, exactly as it is right now.
When you had made it to the other side of this and your baby girl was put into your arms for the first time, what did that feel like?
I mean, amazing. Like a homecoming, like I'd always known her.
Yeah. And I've always known her. I always knew it was her. From when I was little, I always knew it was Ani, and exactly who she is. She's just, she saved my life. Like, my daughter saved me. She like put me on the trajectory of where I was supposed to go. And all along, I mean, even when I got divorced, when I went to get support with the therapy and the eating disorder, it was like, why? Because of Ani. And she didn't even have the name yet, but it was always because I was choosing her. And I think that through my daughter, I'm always honoring the little version of me too, because it's like, as a parent, you can't separate. It's actually one of the greatest gifts, is that you get to actually like revisit those versions of yourself and make peace with those versions of yourself along the way. And, that little picture frame right next to you, do you see what it says?
I love myself and my
dream. My heart is like a rocket. Those are her words. I think she was probably 5 when she wrote that.
She's a wordsmith, just like her mother.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was really like my permission slip. She was really like, okay, get serious now. Like, we're on the clock.
Yeah.
We got this babe here now. And I came out of the experience of the hospital, and I had enormous complications and stuff. I was admitted to the hospital. It was all a lot. My body went through a lot.
Yeah.
But during my maternity leave was really the place where I really started like masterminding that there was going to be a change that had to happen. Like, I wasn't the same person that I was before I had her, and I couldn't go back being that former version of myself again.
Next time on Seacoast Stories.
We left with our empty car seat, and we got there, and 24 hours after that phone call, I was holding him in my arms, and he was our son, Alexander. And he spent his first night in a suitcase in the hotel room. So we didn't have anything for him. We put a little, like, I was like, you know what? Babies used to go in drawers. So this is where he slept his first night.
That's next week on Seacoast Stories. Also happening for us next week, Seacoast Stories Dinner Club is taking over Amesbury, Massachusetts on Friday, April 3rd. This night is brought to you by our friends at Market Square Bakehouse, and Amesbury, it's a tiny town, so spots for dinner are limited. If you want in on the dozen or so spots remaining, then we strongly recommend you visit the link in the show notes to secure your seat at the table. I'll be back next week with part 2 of my conversation with Amber Lilyestrom. But in the meantime, thank you to LANEY and Lou, 27 Tees, and Girl Scouts of the Green and White Mountains for supporting this show. And thanks to all of you for listening. Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon, but until then, live free or die.